Thank you, Madam President. Before I start, I have listened to your speech very carefully, and you mentioned a future with no pain, no suffering, but you haven't mentioned one word during your speech, and I've listened very carefully. What about Hamas? You have to include in your speech a future for Gaza is a future with no Hamas. You cannot describe a world or a reality and not mentioning this is the reason why we are sitting in this room today, the brutality of Hamas and the pain that the people of Gaza are suffering because of Hamas. Madam President, today most of the members of this council failed. They betrayed their own principles, their responsibilities to the innocent, and their duty to uphold justice. The resolution brought before this chamber was not a path to peace. It was a roadmap to more terror, more suffering, and more bloodshed. Many of you attempted to pass this injustice. We thank the United States for exercising its veto, for standing on the side of morality and justice, for refusing to abandon the hostages and their families. The text ignored the suffering of the 101 innocent hostages still held by Hamas in Gaza. Had it passed today, this Council would have sent a message to the world that terrorists can act with impunity, that the United Nations will shield and surrender to murderers, rapists, and kidnappers, rather than holding them accountable. Last week, Sasha Tofano should have celebrated his 29th birthday, surrounded by friends and family. Instead, he is being held by terrorist monsters who recently released a video showcasing his torture. Sasha is starved, his face bruised, his spirit crushed. Hamas doesn't just imprison, they torment, they dehumanize, they rejoice in their cruelty, and now they know that this council will do nothing to stop them. I would like to remind Ambassador Navzia that Sasha is a Russian citizen. He is included in the 29 nations which have citizens held hostage by Hamas, your citizens. Neama Levi, a bright young woman, just 19 years old, was taken and dragged into hell. Neama volunteered at a kindergarten for refugees, bringing light and love to children in need. You have seen the horrible images. Her ankles cut, her sweatpants soaked in blood. Neama's innocence, her humanity, her dreams, all stolen by Hamas. And today, someone in this council told her family that her life is not worth enough to demand her freedom. Those who supported this resolution have announced to the world Sasha's life, Naama's life, and the lives of 99 other innocent people are not valuable enough to be a condition for a ceasefire. Today, the UN celebrates International Children's Day. Rather than demanding that little children like Ariel and Kfir Bibas will be released immediately after 411 days in captivity, this Council is attempting to pass a resolution which declares that their precious lives are not worth your time. This is not diplomacy. It is appeasement. It is abandonment of the very idea that this Council claims to defend. The world should be clear-eyed about what this text truly represents. It rewards Hamas for their barbarity. It validates their strategy of using human shields, targeting civilians, and tormenting hostages in their terror dungeons. It would have set a horrifying precedent that terrorism pays, that violence is met not with condemnation, but with concessions. Why you couldn't agree about condemnation of Hamas? You mentioned you worked tirelessly about drafting this resolution. Couldn't you sit down, the 14 countries who voted for that, and agree about a condemnation in this resolution? Like one line? We condemn the atrocities of Hamas? Was it so difficult? this Council has already adopted 4 resolutions demanding the release of the hostages. Hamas has ignored every one of them. Why wouldn't they? They have faced no consequences for their crimes, no repercussions for their atrocities, no accountability for their barbarity. Madam President, the loss of civilian life in Gaza is a tragedy. But it is a tragedy authored by Hamas. They started this war. You have to say it. You have to say that they started it on October 7th. We are not here because we wanted to be here. They have held innocent Israelis hostage for over 400 days, with no sign of life or humanitarian access. They use Palestinian civilians as human shields. If this Council fails to place the blame on the terrorists, it only emboldens them further. Israel will continue to defend itself. We will never abandon our hostages. And you have to understand that. Look at your values and understand why. We will never forget them, and we will never stop fighting for their freedom. If Hamas were to release the hostages and surrender their weapons, not one more shot would need to be fired. But until that day comes, Israel will do whatever it takes to protect its people and bring our loved ones home. Today, this Council had the opportunity to stand on the side of justice, decency, and humanity. If not for the United States, it would have chosen appeasement, to reward terror and abandon the innocent. History will remember this vote. It will remember who stood with the hostages, the victims, and the principles of peace, and who betrayed them to shield terrorists. Thank you, Madam President.
Thanks for watching. Drop a comment below. Don't forget to like, share, and hit subscribe to stay updated with our latest content. Until next time, stay informed and inspired. This is Dejobnik signing off.